Possession crucial from this. How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over. It's over.
We earned it by winning the last 2 matches on the road, and that's not going to be taken away from us.
But what I love in hurling, I love players that will never give in.
He hits it. He hits it. It's over the bar. Oh, holy Moses!
This week's RTÉ GAA podcast doesn't know how it's going to go back to ironing when all this ends. Hello and welcome along to a special edition of the RTÉ GAA podcast. We are selecting or arguing over the full backline for the Sunday game All-Star hurling team of the Sunday game era. I said Sunday game enough times there for the branding anyway. I'm glad to say I'm joined by Sunday game series producer Rory O'Neill, former Kilkenny cornerback and Sunday game pundit Jackie Tyrrell, and by office chairperson and former faithful corner forward and RTE co-commentator Michael Duignan. How are we all, gents?
All good, Mikey.
Good stuff. Right, before we get down to the nitty-gritty of arguing over this team, I guess I better let you know who was actually picked by the readers of RTE.ie and the News Now app. So cue the music. Go back to the start of the music. And here we go. At 10, Michael Kavanagh. At 9, Sylvie Lenan. At 8, Dahi Burke. At 7, Noel Hickey. At 6, Ollie Canning. At 5, maybe on the bench, at least carrying hurls, is Jackie Tyrrell. At 4, Brian Corcoran. At the full back line for the Sunday game era All-Star team is JJ Delaney. At 2, Dermot O'Sullivan. And top-ranked fullback of the era, Brian Lohan, current Clare manager. So there we go. That is the full back line. Brian Lohan, The Rock, Dermot O'Sullivan, and your former teammate, Jackie JJ Delaney. Are you gutted not to make the team?
Yeah, disappointed. But look, there's one Kilkenny man in there now, and we might push another one in there. So I'm still hopeful that we could get it. But look, looking at them all there, kind of surprised Ollie Canning isn't in the top 3. To be honest, He would have been probably
Ollie Canning, I'd say.
Yeah, I think he was 6th on your list there, Mikey. So surprised he's not in it because, God, I thought he was the benchmark when it came to cornerbacks and played in an era when there were some really good corner forwards, and he always held his man. I can remember him holding on Kelly scoreless, and he actually scored a point from cornerback. So surprised he is, but that's the beauty of it. Everyone has an opinion on every different player.
Yeah, and Michael, yourself, you played against several of them, I would say. Who was it that when you saw when you knew who you were playing against, who was the one that made you go, jeez, it's not him?
Well, nearly every player I ever played against, to be honest with you. I suppose I came across The Rock when I was finishing up and he was starting out 99, 2000. Very formidable, great hurler. Lohan was, back in the mid-90s, was unbeatable. He was a savage leader. He probably changed the way the full-back position, in terms of attacking the ball and getting out. And where I think maybe traditionally it was strong full back. There were always good hurlers though. The one thing I think people might underestimate about the full back line is the quality of player you have to have. You can go back to the 70s, to Pat Hartick and even Martin Doherty, then Leonard Enright following on through Eugene Coughlin, Offaly, all these great hurlers, because you were the last line of defence as well. Make a mistake there, the ball's in the back of the net. So I think that sort of hurling full back has been there over the last 40, 50 years. But I suppose Lohan, just the way he could lift the crowd and the way he attacked the ball and could, go up the field. I would have left JJ for the half-back line, being honest. I know Jackie rates him very highly. To me, he's the best defender I've seen in my time, but I'd have him at 7 all day. So I would have been leaving room, maybe Corcoran at 2, Lohan at 3, Rock at 3. I think 2 cornerbacks there, and Ollie Canning. And I'd have to say, with an Offaly hat on, Martin Hannamy, I don't think I saw better. So, look, it's unbelievable. It's only when you see it down, you hear the debate and you go through all the counties and see the quality of players, and it's incredible.
Yeah, Rory, what do you make of that? Would you as a Cork man, would you rate The Rock above Brian Lohan there? Would you have Brian Corcoran in the full back line ahead of any of his other 74?
100%. Yeah, I would have Corcoran ahead of The Rock. I mean, The Rock was an iconic figure for the Cork supporters. He was somebody that stole an awful lot of the limelight and the headlines because he had that sort of, swashbuckling style to full back play. But as a sort of an overall and a rounded hurler, we'll say, which I think kind of in his era, the full back line, I think the role of the full back line started to change. And Corcoran was just a much more, for me, Brian Corcoran was a much more complete player. But to go back to what Jackie was saying, I would 100% agree, and I'd be very interested in the lads' view on this, is that Ollie Canning, for me, was the prototype modern cornerback. He almost started how cornerback play it was to evolve, because he was very quick, his pace, he was able to his ability to read the play, and his distribution. I mean, for cornerbacks, historically, their primary role was probably to stop their man, so they wouldn't have got on a huge amount of ball. And I think Ollie Canning, would it be fair to say that Ollie Canning was the first to sort of reinvent the role to a large extent?
Yeah, I think it's a fair point. And the thing about, I think Ollie Canning was naturally a corner forward that got pushed back cornerback. And he had that forward guys thinking of, any time I got the ball, I just lumped it as high as possible down the field, whereas Ollie Canning was thinking of the actual corner forward inside. For an actual cornerback, it's just get it away, get it as far down the field. He was thinking, what kind of a ball can I put into the forward? Give him the advantage. You put these lovely low diagonal balls across. So you're dead right, Rory. He was the new type of cornerback that came, and you can see the type of cornerbacks after that. The Paul Murphy, Pottle Barrett, get the ball, break the tackle, get to the 45, head up, good distribution. But the thing about Ollie Canning was he would probably had one perceived weakness, which was his lack of height and his aerial ability.
Yeah.
But you rarely see a lad catching a ball over his head. He had everything. But to go back to the other point, Brian Lohan, I think for me is number one, and he was just so iconic. When he came out with the ball, the whole place lifted, even if he only hit 30 yards, and he made that red helmet with the no chin.
A clearance from Lohan. A clearance from Lohan was almost like worth the score for the Clare supporters.
Well, when we're talking about clearances, I think we should probably mention, we've mentioned Rock being an icon, and he's an icon he's remembered very well and fondly for one particular clearance. I could show him hitting Jack Foley here, but thanks to our friends over at Sports Joe and Colin Parkinson, they're kindly going to let us show him hitting Colin Parkinson instead, which I think we'll all enjoy. I was involved in the making of this video. I promise you it's well worth a watch. So I'm just going to share my screen with you here now, lads, and let's have a look at what a real fullback looks like. 1 second now. I got my head.
Honest with you, thought of knocking you over and putting you on the ground for a bit was too good an opportunity to pass up the one there.
Today I'm going to hospitalise a Rock.
Oh, it was a great ball in though. What to start.
I don't know supposed to take so much pleasure out of that.
There you go. The one thing you don't see, the one thing you don't see in that video, he actually put that ball over the bar. That was, and he was about his own 45 and it's line there. So, he could have been a forward. Jackie, what is the difference between a good fullback and a fullback?
What's the difference between what makes a fullback really good, Mikey?
Is it a good fullback and a good cornerback?
Two really different positions. And how many times have you seen a cornerback being pushed in fullback and struggling with it? I was one of them. So it makes that transition really hard. I know when JJ left Kilkenny, Paul Murphy was tried, it didn't work out, and it was a conundrum for Kilkenny for a long while. And if you look in the modern game, how many teams have natural fullbacks that they can just pick every week and not worry about? Galway have it in Dahi Burke. Dublin have it yeah, exactly.
Oh, no,
but there's not too many. Everyone else is a makeshift fullback. You look at James Barry, the job he did for Tipperary. Watford struggled with for years and had to incorporate a sweeper. The difference mainly is that a cornerback, you attack the ball, you get out in front. If you miss it, you still probably have a fullback behind you covering you. You miss it, a fullback, you slip, and it's straight through on goal. So the element of risk, it's really, really, really risky position to play. Cornerback, there's still an element of cover. You have to be so secure in possession. You just have to judge things so much more clinically than you do a cornerback. And it's a really hard position to play. And that's why JJ Delaney going from wing back to full back and making it so easy just shows the caliber of guy, the class he is, because not too many players play there. A full back is a really hard position to nail down. You have to be good under the high ball. You have to know when to go. You have to be able to read situations. The ball could break left or right off either of the other cornerbacks. So there's a lot going on in it, and the game, the position has evolved hugely over the last couple of years, and that's why I feel fullback maybe 15 years ago was a harder position to play, because now there's guys dropping backs. You've half forward dropping back. You've your centre back sitting in front of the D. We all talk about it, the Burka type role. So there is that element of security there. Whereas before, a high ball into the square, it was 1-on-1, and it was really hard to defend.
And Jackie, I think as well, the way the game has developed over the last 10 years or 5 years even, has allowed players to be put back into the full-back position and hurl, like Ronan Maher said for tip last year, because the direct ball is not going in anymore as much as it used to go in, where you needed someone that was very strong in the air, that was able to. Now you can put more of a hurler in there, nearly like Ollie Canning going back cornerback. That has developed. But I still think it's a ply that teams could use, to put in that high ball at times. We saw Seamus Callan a few years ago with 3 goals against Galway, and before Daithí Burke's time, I think it was John Hanbury was fullback. Was it that there? I don't want to be hard on John Hanbury, but I think it was. But the way it's changed. But the one thing I think they all have in common, like I watched back the Wexford tip game the other day. I don't know if you saw it. It was on TG Carr. Like the performances of Liam Ryan.
Michael, it's too soon.
Yeah, the performance of Liam Ryan and Ronan Maher at fullback in that game, just to show the way the game has changed. Liam Ryan sallied up the field and stuck one over the bar off his hurl in the first half that I think any great midfielder or wing forward would be proud of. Ronan Maher scored 2 unbelievable points. He caught balls out of the air. He was just immense. He had Conor McDonald got a couple of goals off, maybe 2-2. You couldn't blame him for the goals, but it's just the way hurling is evolving and changing, and it's unbelievable. But I think one thing they all have in common, anyone that's worth their salt, it's there for maybe 10 or 15 years, they're all as tough as nails. You have to be sort of mentally and physically, and you have to be half mad. I'm thinking of some of the lads. Frank Lohan, now we didn't mention yet, Brian gets all the plaudits. Frank Lohan as a number 4, an out and out cornerback, ahead of his time, mentally so strong, intimidating, so fast, so ruthless in terms of what he did, and his concentration levels. A very intelligent guy. I don't know if you know him, very quiet fella, but one funny story about him. I was on the Hurling 2020 review group a few years ago. Liam Sheedy was chairing it, and we had loads of different meetings and different groups in talking to us about things. But Pat Doherty was the Hurling referee, Crow Park referee man at the time. So he came in one day, and we noticed in the Sunday game as well, they come in and we watch video clips, and they give us a zapper, and you have to say red card, yellow card, or no foul. And you'd be having a bit of crack with it as well sometimes, with Pat. Pat was very serious, as he should be, about his role. But they showed this one particular tackle, anyway, high ball coming in, and I won't mention names, but a lad was flaked down top of the head. It was the most blatant red card of all time. And we all pressed the buzzer, and all joking aside, we had to say red card. So there was about 12 or 13 of us, and maybe or 10 of us on the committee. So we all pressed a red card. The next thing, Pat Doherty stood up and looking total indignation on his face. He said, "Lads, for Jesus' sake," he says, 12 here in the room, 11 red card and 1 no foul. Who said that was no foul? And no one puts up the hand. He said, that wasn't even an effort freeze. That was enough.
Well, men were men. That reminds me of I have to say 2 men who weren't in the reckoning, but they can't be. Jackie, you'd be fond of both of them. I'd say heroes when you were a kid. The O'Connor brothers. As a Wexford fan, we kind of had Stockholm syndrome there in the 90s about you Kilkenny men. We kind of grew to like you all, but you couldn't like the O'Connor brothers. You couldn't. They were Willie has the 3 or 4 All-Stars. Eddie has the 1. I think that shows Willie was probably the better hurler. But I'll never forget, there was a day, I think we were in Dr. Cullen Park. I can't remember the match. It must have been the early to mid 90s. Wexford were playing Kilkenny, and we were on the open stand. I was with me dad, like I was at every match. And Eddie O'Connor hit Eamon Scallon a dig off the ball. And Eamon Scallon went down, and my dad shouted something at Eddie O'Connor, say he wasn't too impressed with what Eddie O'Connor had done. Next thing, Eddie O'Connor walks away from Eamon Scallon, comes over towards the sideline and starts shouting abuse at my dad. This is obviously during one of those long periods of Kilkenny dominance at the other end of the field. And Eddie O'Connor and my dad proceeded to have a row for, I'd say, about 20 seconds, and me mortified into the terrace about 10 years of age. But I just remember thinking, Jesus, that man is as obstreperous and as stubborn and as they go. And Michael, I was wondering, you must have had the pleasure of marking one, if not both, of the
Well, that's it. You asked me about JJ and The Rock and Brian Lohan. Really, JJ and The Rock were different eras than me. Brian Lohan, yeah, but the two O'Connors, I played so much against them for probably 13 or 14 years between club and county. From the late 80s right through the 90s. I would say without hesitation, Willie O'Connor was the best player I ever marked. He was an incredible hurler. He was actually the total opposite Eddie on the field. He never opened his mouth. He never got any hassle. Just hurled the ball. He was a genius. He was a brilliant hurler. And he wasn't that big and he wasn't that fit and he wasn't that anything, but he was just a brilliant reader of the game and a brilliant man to get down over the ball. And he was a brilliant hurler. Eddie was just a pantomime. Now, that is the only way to describe it. And we played him in 95. It's the last Munster we won, so I love talking about it, but that long ago. But he was on me at the start and he actually was clean. It was a real wet day. It was probably the wettest day ever that a championship match was played. But he went out in front of me for a couple of balls and he got one ball and he went out and he could have cleared it, but you could see the cockiness in him. He took it back in the hurl again and went on again. And Johnny Pilkin came out of nowhere and flattened him with his shoulder just as he was clearing. And I went broke to one of ours, poked into me. I got it and tapped it over the bar, an easy score. And Eddie came back in and I said, "That's it, Eddie." I said, "Yeah, gobshite. So you keep soling out to feel like that," I said. And you keep soling out to feel like that and losing the ball. And I keep tapping him over the bar and here, good man, Eddie. Kind of rubbed him on the head. He went absolutely ballistic. That was the day he threw the ball at Cregan. He just lost the head completely. And we put him off his game. But as a hurler, again, he was a great hurler. But Willie was exceptional. Look, again, a great era. You just mentioned Wexford. I let back to Jackie now, but I think we had probably two of the best fullbacks in Offaly over the last 30 years in Eugene Coughlin and Kevin Keenan. Keenan looked slow, but he wasn't. I said to him one day, "You're deceptively slow. You're even slower than you look." But he actually was a brilliant hurler. But he only came on the scene in about 93, 94, and he was gone in 2000. In 8 years, he won 2 All-Irelands and 3 All-Stars. Wow. He was man of the match in the 95 final against Clare, even though I think Shawny Mack got it. But he was the best player in the field. And Hannamy was just an institution, a cornerback. But Larry Murphy was telling me years after we retired, he was full forward for Wexford in the Leinster final in 98. So it was a real hot day, and he came running in before the game. And I don't know if you know Larry, the most friendly, outgoing. Everything is the glass is full. It's never even a little bit full. It's always full. So he was telling me, and he's real excited. I ran in, he says, and it was Mark and Keenan, a real hot day, and I ran in and put out my hand. I knew Keenan well, he says, from Railway Cups and everything. I put out my hand. "Well, Kevin, how's it going?" Shake hands. And Keenan just glared down at me. Now, if you knew Keenan, he was 6'4", built like a tank with the shoulders. And he said he never bowed his hand, and he was just growling at me, he says, and glaring at me. So I turned around, he says, and I was looking up the field, and the national anthem was playing. And I knew he was still looking down at me, he says, he was still glaring at me. He said, "Jeez, I was really uncomfortable." And then Hannamy shouts over, who never said a word, "Larry." And I looked over and says, "Well, Martin, no helmet today, Larry." And I tapped my head and I says, "No, Martin, big mistake, Larry." He said, "The man trying to hurl after that." He says, "With the two of them after you."
Oh, Lord. Jackie, would it be unfair to say that all a cornerback wants to do really is mark his man? That's your job. As you say, a fullback has a little bit more to consider. So I wonder if you could talk to us about your own thought process during the 2012 All-Ireland final when the man you wanted to mark Tommy Walsh.
Yeah, there was a question asked that day that we never perceived, a forward wanting to mark a back. It was just, it was crazy. It was like we were on a different planet. It was like we were playing a different game. I remember one stage, excuse me, Mikey, a ball was coming up our right wing. I think Pádraig Maher had it, and Lar wasn't even looking where the ball was coming. He was looking where Tommy was, and it was very hard to do I look at the ball, or do I look where my man is, or do I look where Tommy is, or what? And it was just a total meltdown, really. And the four of us didn't know what to do. And at one stage, the four of us up in the top corner of between where the hill meets the Hogan, and we're belting into each other, the four of us. And all the crowd were looking at us, and the ball was down at the other end of the field. And there was a roar when Lara had hit Tommy, and then there was a roar when Tommy had hit Pa Burke, and the four of us. I don't know. It was like we're in a row in a schoolyard somewhere. All we needed was the crowd around the shouting at us. But it was the most crazy, and it happened so quick. You didn't really know, is this actually for real? And it was only halfway through the second half that it died down a bit, and they started to hurl that. It petered out a bit, but it was just crazy. I look back now and I can laugh because we won, But if Tipperary had won, it'd be a very sore point. But it was just, I couldn't believe my own eyes, to be honest. It was like, here's Lar Corbett, former hurler of the year. He could beat us nearly on his own if he got 2 balls. And he's more interested in tucking into Tommy and distracting him. Poor old Pa Burke didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do either. The two of us were kind of looking at each other. I didn't want to mark Pa. Pa wanted to mark me. I wanted to mark Lar, and Tommy wanted to mark Pa. And it was just, I still don't know what sense to make, but I
tell you a good one about it, Jackie, right? A couple of years afterwards, when Brendan first arrived into the Sunday Games studio, I asked him about that particular incident. I said, was that the game plan, beforehand? And he said, well, if it was Lar's game plan, he forgot to tell the rest of us about it.
I think he said afterwards that he picked it up. He was in Australia that off season, and obviously I'd man mark him the year before. And he asked the coach over there, he was in with some team, what would you do if there was a guy marking you, but you didn't want to mark him? And he said that he would try some idea like marking one of their best players. So he went off and thought about it, and he earmarked Tommy as our best defender, which was rightly so. And he said he was going to mark him. I still don't see the rationale behind it, but it was just madness. But I think the crowd enjoyed it anyway, and I think the people at home didn't really know what was going on because the camera was looking at the ball all the time, and they didn't realise the circus that was going up in the far right hand corner where there was 4 lads poking the heads off each other, and there wasn't a ball of 100 yards.
Yeah.
Nowadays, Jackie, right? Sorry, Mickey. Nowadays, Jackie, like obviously the role of the fullback has changed in the fullback line, and particularly the cornerbacks because of the nature of the short puckouts and the fact that your first port of call now will probably be your cornerback, your Cathal Barrett's or your Sean Finn's or your Sean O'Donoghue's or Paul Murphy's or whoever that might be. I mean, when did you notice that shift? And was that something that, were you would it have been something that you would have been comfortable with, accepting the ball from the goalkeeper? Was it Kilkenny's way? We know Kilkenny would be more traditional in lamping it long, but when did you notice that shift, and what did you make of it?
Yeah, well, it was a slow integration. I remember in 2008 when PJ Ryan was in goal, and the team talk of Brian Cody would always be it was no direction at all. He would say to puck it to PJ, puck it short. Make sure you don't lose it. And if you think you're going to lose it, puck it long. So PJ didn't know what to do. And when PJ, he used to always tell a great story, when he got a ball in the goal, he'd look out his full back line. Michael Kavanagh would have his back to him turned down looking the other way. JJ would have his back to him looking the other way at the other end of the field. I kind of have a lukewarm, kind of a half a shoulder turned as in like, PJ, I'm giving you an option, but I don't really want it. So that was kind of the start of it. But it wasn't until 2013-14 when it really became part of the game. And it manifested itself in itself. First of all, the cornerback would get just turn, swivel, and bang the ball down the other end of the field. Look, it's coming from a different angle. But then it became a situation where teams knew exactly where it was landing, and it was more of a thing. The cornerback received the ball, and he needed options. And that really became evident in Kilkenny in 2016-17. Paddy Deegan was a new kind of type of cornerback. Get the ball, get the head up, pop it to Killian Buckley, Mark Welch, and go again. We were probably a little slow to move on it. The likes of Wexford 2014, 15, particularly 16, it was very evident. And now it's part of every game. It's filtered to the club game. And if you having 2 really good receptive cornerbacks that can pick the ball, break a tackle at pace, deliver it to maybe a halfback and go again, the likes of a Sean Murphy, well then you're not really at the races. Sean Finn is excellent at Cathal Barrett.
Sean Finn is excellent.
What that demands is, me as a cornerback, I was 6'2", 14.5 stone. Would I be able to do that now? Of course not. Your new prototype of cornerback is 5'11", really dynamic, really pacey, really comfortable on the ball. Sean Finn, Cathal Barrett, that's Cathal Barrett now. And they're excellent at it. When they get a ball, they're going to take on their man and they're going to go again for the pass. And they'll stay going. If they have to carry up the field, they'll do that, Rory. And that's where the game has demand. And it's brilliant at that.
It's good. It's good, yeah. It's good. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Michael, I was wondering, 13 and 15 on the backs now, any number on the back now probably means less than maybe it did in your day. But would there have been a discussion in the full forward line about, would there have been a cornerback that might have suited one of you more than the other, or was it very much, I'm the left corner forward, so I have to mark the right cornerback? Or would you be familiar with a defender's style of play and kind of pick up the man that suited you?
Yeah, it probably was. It was probably more positional, I'd say, at that time. say Billy Dooley was nearly always our 13. Joe would have been a 15. If I was 15 or I'd be 12, we'd be swapping in and out. But it definitely came into the game more as time went on. And at club level, we certainly would have looked at it in terms of maybe identifying a smaller cornerback. Again, going back to the more direct hurling I was talking about, like Simon Whelan would have played cornerback for us. He was very small. He played forwards for Burr, but he wasn't particularly strong in the air. So Joe Dooley, even in training, you could see that with the direct hurling we did, that Simon would struggle. But if you started playing low ball in front of me, he was a great man to get out in front. But the role has changed. Look, as you say, even back then, I might have played corner forward, but I would have been out in the wing or back in the middle of the field. It didn't mean that much. But I think the importance of cornerback and fullbacks in particular. I'm thinking of Cathal Barrett here for Tip. I would nearly say he's their most important player on their team, because if you take when he was out injured for that period, their backline with the great hurlers they have, with all due respect to Pádraig Maher, Ronan Maher, Brendan Maher, there was a feeling out there if you turned that half backline and got in behind, that they were struggling in the full backline for pace and drag that half backline out the field and get in behind. But when Barrett's on that, they can all attack the ball because he's just there. He's so dynamic over that first 5 yards. So when the ball breaks, he's onto it. And he's closing that. When there's big spaces in Croke Park and Thurles, he's the key man that's getting on the ball. Maybe not always winning and coming out, but just getting on the ball, getting a touch, getting a flick, allowing Pádraig Maher and Ronan Maher to get back around and turn and get back in position. So it is hugely influential. But look, we're talking about players here over the years that played, and it's so hard for me to see 3 lads picked out. Michael Kavanagh, didn't mention him, 8 All-Irelands with Kilkenny. Started off as a 5, but as a 2. Wayne Sherlock would have probably done the same with Cork. These lads.
I was just going to say the same about Wayne Sherlock, actually, Michael. And Wayne Sherlock, for me, in terms of that particular Cork team, like I always remember. I remember Eddie Brennan being asked, and we all know how much of a poacher Eddie was on the inside line, and how much of a goal scorer he was. And I remember when he packed up playing, he was actually asked, the most difficult player that he faced, and without question, he just went straight for Wayne Sherlock.
Yeah, I would say in my time, like I'm looking at hurling, I suppose, since the late 70s, but particularly since the mid 80s, Dermot Offaly, he would be a player that I would rate very, very highly, who gets very little, but that's the nature of the game.
Yeah.
It's the nature of the game, even from generation to generation. A few years, Jackie mentioned earlier on, when he played the game now, it changes so quickly, and then other players come to the fore, and that's the way it should be. Like, there's no doubt in my mind, and the game is evolving for the better. We're looking at lads, like I would have been a big critic, as you know, over the years, of maybe the sweeper system, and Davy and myself for the clash. But the way he's developed the game with Wexford now, it's not really a sweeper. It's you're playing with backs, but now they're attacking. They have that license to attack. And if anything, what killed them last year against Tip in that game was that they actually stopped playing that way when they went down, when Tip went down to 14 men, that it started going direct and it didn't suit them, and they played into Tip's hands. Instead of keeping that running game going and maybe taking an extra pass at times earlier in the game. But like the way they're cornerbacks, not just, I mentioned Darragh Ryan or Liam earlier on, but they're cornerbacks. Damien Reckon them attacking, ended up in the full forward line or passing out their half forwards, causing. What that does for a forward is it puts you under fierce pressure, because you're up there. If you're a John McGrath or someone for Tip, and next thing you're chasing 70-80 yards back down the field, or your man could be putting the ball over the bar. There was never anything as demoralising for a forward than to see a back scoring off him. Brian Whelan training could score 5 points off you and make a fool of you, and it was very demoralising. But Barrett, to me, Wayne Sherlock, and just on Ollie Cannon, because before I go, like Jackie mentioned, he started off in the forwards. He played midfield with the club. He's all round hurling ability, hurling brain, reading it again. I trained Portumna for a number of months in 2010. And was down there as kind of a coach, and watching him in training with Joe, maybe poking to each other, I don't think I ever saw him miss the ball in the training session. Now, I don't care how good, in every drill, no matter what the conditions were, no matter how hard, low, high, first, he never missed the ball in any training session, any night. His skill level was just off the radar. So as a hurler, an all-round hurler, I think you'd have to make, and we're talking about squeezing out lads, but I think you'd have to make room for Ollie Canning in that full backline.
That's interesting. It's good to get your opinions on that. So just before we go, I might just ask you both, Jackie first, who would be your current full back line then? A player is currently playing. Who would be the 3 you'd pick now at the moment? Wait, not regardless of form last year or whatever, but current players, who would you have as your 3 full backs at the moment?
I'd have Cathal Barrett, I'd have Dahi Burke, and I would possibly have Sean Finn.
Michael?
Hard to argue with that.
Yeah.
Hard to argue with that.
I think Dahi Burke, as an out and out fullback and an athlete, and we see him playing football for Corofin. But again, that mental strength, not giving away frees, standing up his man, getting inside her head, in the air, on the ground, completely disciplined, outstanding player. And then look, you'd have to have Barrett gets up the nose of everybody that he marks. He's a brilliant hurler, and Sean Finn out and out skill.
Owen O'Donnell would have to be in the conversation if he just was with Owen O'Donnell, probably if he was with a slightly bigger county. Would you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I just think probably with Dahi Burke's, he's just been more consistent over a longer period of time. Owen O'Donnell has only kind of found his feet the last 2 years. I think Dahi Burke won 4 All-Stars in a row. And the thing about Dahi Burke is the pivotal position at full-back, by Galway putting him full-back and Garrod McInerney centre-back, those 2 positions nailing down, Galway winning All-Ireland off the back of it. It just shows the magnitude of getting the spinier defence. What can be the difference? What was the difference in Galway winning the All-Ireland? It was Dahi Burke on to 3, Garrod McInerney built their team around that, and it was the launch pad. And Dahi Burke for me is probably the best defender in the country at the minute. But what I love about really good defenders is you have to remember, as a cornerback, I remember the 2008 All-Ireland final, we won it. I think I touched the ball twice. So you're running darting for 70-75 minutes. You might, on a really good day, you might hit the ball 6 or 7 times. So you have so much time to think. And the really good defenders are the lads that when they concede a score, that they go out with a positive mindset. They don't dwell on it because they have so much time. They could be running for another 12, 13, 14 minutes before they get another touch again. So it's that ball is gone. Right, I lost it, he got a score, I learned from it, and I move on. And the great defenders always bounce back. The next ball comes in, they're out in front, they're playing on the front foot. They get Cottle Barrett, you always see him, if he concedes a score, the next ball that goes him in, his man is not winning it. And that's what makes the really great cornerbacks and fullbacks great.
That's nice. Lads, we might leave it at that because Jackie has a big cardboard box behind him. There's a double buggy which he needs to get home pronto. So
good luck with the impending arrival as well, Jackie. Very good. Best of luck with it.
And,
I'll try get fullback for Village and Kilkenny.
Jackie, I'm going to be thinking about this all day today. You touched the ball twice in that round, but you hit a good few lads at the same time.
Lad, thanks very much for joining us. Just to say, there's lots and lots of GA content on the RTÉ website and News Now app, and we'll have some nice archive stuff coming up on TV soon. And Sunday Sport returns again this Sunday, surprisingly, 2 to 4. So lots of GA content on the RTÉ platforms, and as I said last week, we'll get through this together. I'd like to thank Jackie, I would like to thank Michael, and I would like to thank Rory, and we will chat to you again to discuss some football fullbacks in a few days. Thanks very much. Chat to you.
Thanks a million, lads. Cheers, guys.
Possession crucial from this. How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over. It's over.
We earned it by winning the last 2 matches on the road, and that's not going to be taken away from us.
But what I love in hurling, I love players that will never give in.
He hits it. It's over the bar.